Let's start off by talking about high school. Who was your favorite teacher in high school?
I think my favorite teacher in high school was Miss Malika. She was my second grade teacher. And I think she eventually, like at the later stages, she became my eighth grade teacher as well. So I was very familiar with her and she remembered me. So we had good memories together.
What was your favorite subject in high school?
My favorite subject would be, I think, was English because I liked reading stories and novels, and it just kept me engaged. Wherein, like with the other subjects, you had to, it was more technical, but I enjoyed the reading bit, and I still do enjoy reading. So I'd say English.
Do you ever miss being in high school?
I do actually, because I started working very early. I did not get to experience the university or college. So the memories that I have or the friends I have is from high school. And I do think about times where we could just go back and have a reunion and like have that moment again.
Now let's talk about transportation. Do you take public transportation or private transportation?
I do not like public transportation. I moved to Dubai a few years ago and I got my driving license just because I hated going in metros or buses. So I got my driving license and I enjoy driving.
Is it easy to catch public transportation in your country?
In my country, yes, it's quite easy and convenient, I would say. The streets are very busy, the traffic is crazy. So it's easier for people to get to work with public transportation. Yeah.
Is driving a private car popular in your country?
I would say in countryside, it's quite popular as there's not as much modes of transport as in the big cities. So in the countryside, it's quite popular, wherein in the big cities, people prefer taking public transportation. It's faster, it's convenient.
Now let's talk about the internet. How often do you use the internet?
I think every day we are also addicted to internet. So yeah.
What are your favorite websites to visit?
I think it's Instagram. I think Instagram is the one website I use every single day whenever I'm bored, just to see what my friends are up to. And that's, yeah, Instagram.
Do you think that you ever use the internet too much?
Um, I'd say when I'm having a bad day, I would just stay home and like scroll on Instagram and just try to escape reality in a way. But on the other days, like when I'm out, I do not use Instagram or any social media websites that much.
Now let's talk about your free time. What do you normally like to do in your free time?
A lot of things, actually. I think I'm someone who likes variety in everyday life. So just going out, checking out a new place or trying different activity, seeing my friends. Yeah, I try to keep busy on my days off.
Are you very active in your free time?
I like to think I am active, yes. If I have nothing to do, I just go to the gym or to the pool, read a book. But I try to do something on my free time, something, yeah.
What do you normally like to do on the weekend?
Like I mentioned earlier, I like to see my friends, try a different restaurant, cafe, or an activity. Just last weekend, I went to try this ice bath. You just jump into a bucket of ice. So just, yeah, try different things. Describe a day when you thought the weather was perfect. Where were you? I was in Dubai a couple of months ago. Just when the summer was about to end, there was this day when I was just standing in my balcony. It was a bit cloudy that day. And then, like a few minutes later, I saw the lightning and the thunderstorm, and it just got darker. And then I was standing in my balcony and I saw the lightning, and I have the whole view of Dubai skyline. So I could see the Burj Khalifa, the Dubai frame. and I saw the lightning on top of, like right on top of Burj Khalifa, which was beautiful. I recorded it and I posted it on Instagram. And then I saw a lot of people were posting the same stories, but from different places. A friend of mine came over. We had a glass of wine on the balcony, and then it started to rain, like rain heavily. So thunderstorm, rain, and it's just not very common to see that in Dubai. That's why I thought the weather was perfect, because it's always hot and sunny and humid. And as soon as like the season starts to change, I think they do something called cloud seeding, where then they make it rain, apparently. So it was very beautiful to see the rain. We had a nice day, nice evening in the balcony, having a glass of wine, looking at the beautiful weather. The traffic was very crazy, by the way. The roads were flooded. And I think like we ordered some food, by the way, and it took us 2 hours to get the food, the deliveries.
That's the end of the 2 minutes. And
Thank you.
that's the end of part 2. And we're going to move on to part 3 now. So we've been talking about a perfect day, and we're going to continue to talk about the weather. What type of weather do people in your country dislike the most? To thank you.
I think my country, India, it's quite hot and humid, especially some parts of India. So I suppose people hate the summer because it can get really intense. But where I grew up, it's not very hot. So some parts, like especially the north, it's not very hot. Actually, like throughout the year, the temperature, I'd say, would go up to 22 degrees. But wherein like down from Delhi onwards, it gets really hot and humid. And it's just because a lot of people use public transportation, and it's not easy to use public transportation or walk around because when it's just so hot. So I suppose they would hate the hot climate more than the cold. Yeah.
What jobs can be affected by different weather conditions?
A lot of jobs related to transport, I feel, would be affected. Driving, I'd say taxis or buses, even the flights, pilots or cabin crew, when the weather is not right, the flights might be delayed. And then if it's raining, the taxis would not be able to drive because of the water or the floods. So I think a lot of transport related jobs, and even food for that matter, like the deliveries, all the delivery companies, they would have an impact of in a way.
Now let's talk about weather forecasts. Okay. What's the best way to get accurate information about the weather?
Well, I personally use Google weather reports. I'm not very sure about this one because it depends from person to person. For me, I think Google weather reports are quite accurate, but I do not have a clear answer for that.
Is it easy to predict the weather in your country?
I suppose it is, yeah, because like I said earlier, some parts of India, the weather the temperature doesn't go over a certain degrees, but wherein some parts are really hot and humid throughout the year. So I think it's quite easy to predict. But when it comes to rain or monsoon season, it's a bit hard. Like this year, a few months ago, in the north of India, it was raining heavily and the rain did not stop for, I'd say 2 weeks. So that was not predictable.
That's the end of the speaking test. Well done.
Thank you.
I'd like to give you some feedback on your performance because I think that you're capable of getting one of the very highest bands, but there are some things that you just need to be aware of. So what I'll do is I'll divide the feedback up into part 1, part 2, and part 3, and then give you feedback on fluency, grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, talk about the technical parts. on what band scores you would expect. Part one was great. You developed your answers enough. It was like talking to a friend or talking to a colleague. You could tell that you were a little bit nervous, but those nerves didn't really, in part one anyway, didn't really prevent you from doing well. And you were, answering the questions naturally. Your nervousness didn't cause any problems with fluency. On test day, you might be even more nervous. So a lot of my advice to you will be about kind of preventing nerves taking over. The way I always describe it is our brain is kind of like a computer, and stress is like opening too many programs on your computer. Like you might have a great MacBook Pro, but if you put it under stress, everything kind of slows down. And that's just, I think, the same with you. You've got a MacBook Pro up there for speaking English, but you're putting a little bit too much pressure on yourself. So the enemy is really yourself, if that makes sense. You're more than capable of doing well. And what I would always say is, I know it's difficult because you're speaking to an examiner you've never met before, but imagine a friend. Imagine someone you're close with, and they're just asking you these questions. Imagine you're in a coffee shop in your local area having a coffee. Maybe if they ask you some of these questions, you'd be like, "What? Why are you asking me that?" But just that sort of frame of mind, that attitude, that often does help students. The other thing to know is, like, I would not lie to you. I'm telling you that you are very, very good. You are more than capable. So you should have confidence in yourself. Part two was good also. There was a little bit of repetition halfway through. You were like, yeah, my friend came around, had a glass of wine. That would be a problem if you constantly did that. So if you said something like, there was lightning, my friend came around, we had a glass of wine, we put it on Instagram. Yeah, there was lightning that day, and my friend came around. You didn't do that. You just repeated one little bit. The reason you did that, I think, I might be wrong, is you were trying to think of more things and you wanted to keep talking was that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So the examiner will recognize that and probably won't mark you down for that.
Okay.
They would only mark you down if you did that a lot, because there's 4 bullet points. What a lot of students do is they will talk about the bullet points, the 4 or maybe some other things for a minute, and then they'll just go back and they'll rehash them. They'll just repeat them. You didn't do that, but again, on test day, if you get nervous, it's kind of like a defensive thing to do, is like, look at the bullet points again. Oh, I'm just going to talk about those things. So a good tip is to add maybe 3 or 4 more bullet points. Common things like how you felt, past, present, future, examples, stories, things related to that topic. And then when you start to think, oh, I'm running out of things to say, just look down, talk about that, and then talk about that. So just give yourself enough ammunition to use. Part 3, you did very well. In part 3, the examiner will ask you more difficult questions. The worst thing you can do is when you get a difficult question is just, a lot of people just laugh and go, I don't know. You didn't do that. Even though you did get one question that you didn't know a huge amount about, you did very well because you attempted an answer. If you attempt an answer, what you're saying to the examiner is, I don't know about this topic specifically,